I'm Insomniac, and today we're taking a look at an Alpina.
You feel the vibe. You feel the vibe.
Okay, before I get this review started, I'd like to give a big shout out to Steve. Anybody who's been watching this channel for more than a week knows who Steve is, at least by name. He's been supplying most of the watches lately for this channel, and no, he doesn't own a company or anything like that. He's just been getting really cool new watches and dropping them off brand new. This one was literally still in the sealed shipping package. He hadn't even opened it yet, and he dropped it off here for me to take a look at and spend some time with. So, huge shout out to Steve. If anybody besides Steve would like to send in watches to be reviewed, insured, and sent back, email me at shoulditimethis@gmail.com. I will let you know where to send the watches. They will be reviewed, insured, and sent back. Alright, well, pretty excited to get into this one. Let's look at the watch piece by piece. The case on this piece is substantial in every way. It's fairly large, it has a very attention-grabbing wrist presence, and it has a really solid weight and heft to it. Design-wise, it isn't really all too unique. It's a design that's commonly used with a lot of sport watches and dive watches, but the details are where this case really shines. The whole case is stainless steel, brushed finishing everywhere except for the outer edges of the case back and the elegant flowing lip that separates the tops of the lugs from the sides of the case. And this particular area is one of the places where you can see upon closer inspection that you're dealing with quality machining. Look at the compound curves around the dial and how the tops of the lugs curve downward toward the top of the strap. It's a subtle detail, but it's beautifully done. Case back is a screw down type with various information about the watch engraved around the outer edge and a mountain-like graphic along with 1883 Geneve beautifully engraved into the center. Back on top of the watch we have the bezel, which I think looks really handsome in this brushed stainless steel finish. You have minute markers for every 5-minute interval, alternating between numerals done in a classic font and dots between the even numerals to mark the fives. A Lume dot inside a red triangle marks the 12 o'clock position, and you have a subtle coin edge grip around the circumference. While we're on the bezel, I'll state my one and only complaint with this case, and that is the coin edge grip I was just talking about. It looks great on this case, but it isn't very grippy even with dry hands, so with wet hands or with gloves on, it would probably be a chore to use. The action of the bezel is excellent. It has a really fine-tooth mechanism, so you can make very minuscule adjustments if you want to use it to time something, and there is absolutely zero play or wiggle in the bezel once you've set it somewhere. It's very stable. Last but not least, we have the crown. It's large, but it's proportionately perfect when compared with the overall size and presence of this fairly large case. It has the Alpina logo embossed into its face, and the slots on the crown are really nice and deep, so you can get a great grip on it for winding the watch or setting the time and date. Overall, it's a really well-made case. The dial on this piece can be described the same way the case was described, nothing incredibly unique, but upon further inspection, there's an undeniable class and quality here. The overall aesthetic is really clean and very uncluttered, and sporty without being cheesy or looking like it's trying to be part of some kind of club. You have a matte black dial with an applied Alpina logo and Alpina text below 12, and above the 6 you have the series number in red, then automatic, anti-magnetic, and 100 meters, all done in a clean small text, and Swiss made on either side of the 6 o'clock index. The hour markers are large dagger-shaped markers with slightly larger markers being used at 6 and 9, plus a double set of long markers used at the 12 o'clock position. All of them are white lume-filled markers with finely polished steel borders. At 3 o'clock you have the date window, and what I like here is that instead of using a partial marker, they actually use a third size here, so it's the full dagger-like shape, but small enough to fit between the date window and the minute track. Speaking of the minute track, you have printed white lines along an angled black border, cleanly done. Last but not least, you have the hands. All three hands are a perfect length for this dial, and their shapes work perfectly with this dial aesthetically. The hour and minute hands are done in a polished steel with large white fillings, which match the hour indices perfectly, and the second hand, which is also polished, is a stick style with a counterbalance done in the shape of the Alpina logo, finished in red to give the dial a subtle sporty touch. The whole dial is clean and sharp with a sporty vibe. I like it. The only usable complication on this watch is the date at 3 o'clock. Alpina went with white numerals on a black disc, which looks perfect with the black dial. My only small complaint is the size of the date disc. With a dial this size, a date window and numeral that small seems dwarfed by the rest of the large bold features of this watch, but I can read the date easily at a quick glance, so it works. The Lume on this watch is this piece's biggest letdown. First of all, as you can see here on screen, even with a direct Lume charge, it isn't super bright, although I will say that the Lume does have a nice even glow to it. It doesn't last very long, and it doesn't really pick up a decent charge with standard light, so you basically have to charge it with a direct light source or stand out in the sun, one or the other. The biggest letdown, though, is the fact that the large white centers inside the minute and hour hands are not Lume. So in the dark, you can see the hour markers and the marker on the bezel, but you can't see any of the hands, which makes telling the time in the dark basically impossible. So definitely a missed opportunity here by Alpina. Time at a glance on this watch is excellent. The minute hand and second hand reach all the way out to the minute track. The contrast between the hands and markers against the black dial is great, and the large uncluttered dial makes finding the time at a quick glance really easy. It's about as good as it gets for a quick read of the time. The strap that came on this watch is beautiful. It's a thick padded leather that in all dimensions works well with this substantial case, yet it was comfortable out of the box with virtually no stiffness. The top side is black with white stitching, which matches the dial perfectly, while the sides and underside of the strap, as well as the sides of the free loop, let's see if I can get them there for you, the sides of the free loops as well, also red, which just adds a little bit more of that sporty touch to go with the two small red touches on the dial, as well as the backdrop of that bezel marker there. The underside also has Alpina lightly embossed into it. The clasp is very nicely done. It's a great shape and size, matches the case finishing perfectly, and it has Alpina engraved into the raised center surface. The free loops hold the strap in place perfectly throughout the day, and despite the overall heft of the watch body, this strap was comfortable and offered a good amount of balance on the wrist. Last but not least, we have value. As of the time of this review, Alpina has this watch listed on their site for $1,495, although most of this exact model that I saw on the internet sold for about $1,100 or $1,200, although it's worth mentioning that I basically didn't see any with this really nice leather strap. They all pretty much had a matching stainless steel bracelet, which this one does not come with, this particular one that he got from wherever he got it, which means this one is probably a little bit cheaper than those, so we're probably looking at around $1,000. Now for that type of money, if you're one of the 2.5% of people ever that buy a dive watch to actually dive with, this is an absolute waste of $1,000, because without the Lume filling, well, it's not Lume filling like you saw in the Lume section, without the white stuff in those hands being Lume, you literally can't tell the time in the dark or underwater, so it would be completely useless. But if you're in the other 97+% of people who buy dive style watches and sport watches and you're not actually going to use it for diving, I actually think it's a solid value for that money. You're getting really good build quality, a Swiss-made watch from a known brand, a high beat automatic movement, a lot of really nice stuff, and not just nice stuff in terms of name and it's not overly flashy. It's just a solidly built quality piece. You can tell that when you hold it. in that range of watches. If you're looking for something in the Swiss market with this type of movement and this type of build quality, and you don't want to spend used car money on a watch, I would say that just about anybody would probably be happy wearing this. I definitely enjoyed the time I had it on my wrist. Really nice piece. I liked it. You could wear it with just about anything. I had it on with this sweater thing. I've had it on with t-shirts. I had it on with a button down. You could really kind of dress it up or dress it down. So yeah, for that money, I think it's a nice piece for sure. Again, big shout out to Steve for sending this watch in for review. I really appreciate that. I gave you all the email address in the beginning of the review if you would like to send in watches to be reviewed here instead of making Steve do all the work. And that's it. Appreciate you all watching. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share the video, all that stuff you hear YouTubers telling you. And I'll see you at the next one.
You feel